So one of the key trends that we see emerging is this idea of call-based marketing automation, which is essentially about providing your customer with a seamless experience as they move from online to offline. So essentially this is driven by a couple of trends that happen in the marketplace today. The first one is that marketeers are actually starting to look at the overall customer journey, not just the digital journey. I mean, at the end of the day, the digital journey may start and end online, but the customer journey actually doesn't do that. You know, customers will go online and offline in various ways before they make a decision to purchase your product or your service. So what we're seeing is marketeers actually looking at the overall journey and understanding how do we integrate the data that we're generating from an online perspective with the offline experience to actually drive the behavior and drive the experience that we want to provide to our customer. So the second part of the trend is essentially this idea that the voice is a relationship milestone. Now what we mean by that is we as consumers, we know that we'll make a large chunk of our decision making before we even engage with the brand. You know, if we believe that and we know that we do all the research online or we research in various ways before we even reach out to the brand, then actually the way we reach out, either by going to the store or actually picking up the phone and speaking to somebody, becomes a critical defining moment in terms of the relationship or the engagement that we have with that brand in particular. So from a point of view of a phone call, just imagine if you're looking for a holiday and you're searching for, you know, perhaps going to the Bahamas, and you do various searches and you go on various websites and you find a particular site that interests you in terms of the offers and the products and the holidays that they're offering. Now once you've done that a number of times, you're more than likely to want to pick up the phone to somebody and talk to them and say, you know, you may have some questions about the holiday before you finally book. Now when you pick up that phone, wouldn't it be great if we could divert you straight to somebody who actually has been to the Bahamas in the call center, who actually knows about the Bahamas or is specific or is a specialist in that area? That will give you, as a consumer, a lot more confidence in purchasing from that retailer or that particular holiday provider. And that's what we mean by call-based marketing automation. It's the idea that, you know, how do we leverage the insights that we're generating in the digital footprint to actually improve on the experience that we give our customers as they move from one stage to the next.
The three future trends for marketers that I don't really hear people talking about much. The first one is humanity, adding humanity back into your marketing. More and more marketing is going digital, and too often we just throw out any old message without thinking about how would we do this if we were having the conversation. If the customer is right there in front of us, what would we say? How would we say it? Would we say thank you? Yes, we would. Would we say thank you in the nicest way possible? Yes, we would. That doesn't mean, oh, I've said thank you, I've got an automated message that comes out of my website, it's plain text, it's boring, it's hard to read. That's not saying thank you. The second trend that I don't really hear people talking about is, well, actually, they're talking a lot about it. They're talking about big data, and they're talking about marketing automation. But what they're not talking about is mashing those two things together. Big data is big. Big data is very useful. Big data is also a buzzword that consultants use to sell you more stuff. It's just about using the data you have in a clever way to, again, going back to my first point, adding that humanity into your program. Knowing where people are in the life cycle, understanding what their needs are, what their issues are, what their concerns are, what their desires are, and reacting to those, just like you would in a conversation with a friend at a pub. I think the third emerging trend is that you hear a lot, as I said earlier, about big data, you hear a lot about marketing automation. What people aren't really talking about is how practically do you achieve these things with your marketing program. One of the things at .Mailer that we talk a lot about is think big, start small, and scale quickly. Think big. Don't be afraid to think about what that program is going to look like in 2, 3, 4 months, or a year, or 2 years. But don't try to solve everything at once. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Start small. Pick 1 or 2 things that you know you can accomplish quickly, optimize those things, and then scale quickly. Add to it every day, every week, bit by bit, and by the end of the year, you'll have a beautiful program. If you try to start big, do it all at once, you'll get distracted. You'll find some other project will come up. It's easy to put a marketing automation program down on paper, 45, 50, 60, 70 different touch points. But then when you sit down and try to write the content for all those bits and pieces, you very quickly realize that you're never going to get it all done in one go.
2014 is a huge year for the CMO and the evolution of her job. Let's talk about 3 trends that we're beginning to hear of, but we haven't really heard in tremendous detail. First is around big data. So much is being said about big data, yet there is so much confusion around big data. Too many times marketers are falling into a trap of just thinking that big data equates with the word big. that there's a huge volume of it, that there's just so much data that they don't know what to do with it. That big data becomes really a question of the size of databases and the amount of information that's being gathered. The real trend for 2014 in marketing is not the volume of data, but it's the two other V's. It is the velocity of data. It is the speed with which information is coming across. It is the fact that the vast majority of data will never hit a database, that no database analysis can ever be done on high velocity data. It appears 1 minute and then it's out the door. And if you rely upon database queries and analysis and what happened 2 weeks ago, you'll never understand the context of what happened 2 seconds ago. The second trend is really one of variety. So while it's not volume, it is velocity and it is variety. The marketer of today must think of a multitude of sources and variety of data, from mobile data to point of sale purchase data, to inventory data, to the weather, to competition, to so many things that are happening at any given time that give extreme, powerful context to every marketing decision, which she never had to face in the past. In effect, she needs integration tools that don't build a very cliched answer, which is a 365-degree view of the customer. That is 2012, 2013 talk. Today's marketer must think about context of information coming from disparate sources. She must think about the incredible variety of data and connecting that and seeing the patterns that exist in that. So big data, again, is not about volume. It's about velocity and speed and what's happening at any given moment. It is about the variety of data and trying to pull that information in order to truly see the context of what's happening at any given time. Another huge trend for marketers right now is the analytic view of their world, where marketers traditionally had been creatives. They came out of agencies, they understood the brand, and they understood the customer to an incredible degree on a qualitative basis. Today's marketer has to not be an artist, she has to be a mathematician. And it's that balance of the art and the math that essentially makes marketers incredibly powerful in this day and age. Traditionally, marketers came out of a skill set which was very liberal arts. Increasingly, marketers either have to retrain themselves or hire teams that have a much stronger analytic background. A couple years ago, they were coming from elsewhere in the organization. They might have been financial analysts, they may have been data analysts. Now marketers have to build their own teams that respect those skill sets, particularly around data analysis and financial analysis. You could actually consider today's CMO to not just be the chief marketing officer, but to a large extent the chief strategic officer. She has responsibility for a huge IT budget. She has a responsibility essentially for all the consumer data, and she ultimately has a responsibility for turning those insights into action. It is the marketer's responsibility now as the technologist, as the marketer, and the chief executor in terms of a customer-centric world. Another trend is really built around the actionability of analytics. Analysts are very good at computing numbers. Analysts are very good at creating charts. Analysts are very good at manipulating vast pieces of numbers to come up with interesting graphs and pictures. The trend this year is for a marketer to turn that into action, to understand the insights, to see the patterns, to anticipate the results of taking a great segmentation, of taking a great propensity model, of taking a great cloning model, and actually testing that in market. It's also the marketer's responsibility to have a very scientific test and learn process. Today's marketer needs to be able to test across multiple dimensions, different offers, different creatives against multiple groups of consumers to understand which has the highest effectiveness. But it's also incredibly important for a marketer to have and to build a culture that is built around continuous learning. So it's one thing to run a test. It's far another to actually extrapolate those learnings and build institutionally how to act in the future. It's even a higher degree of capability to have a top-down approach from the CEO level down that says, we will not do anything unless we test and learn against it. Having a great test and learn ability and having a culture around test and learn ironically makes a creative marketer that much more creative, because she can enter into almost any situation, almost agnostic about the results. No longer can someone say to her, how do you think that campaign is going to run? She can say, I don't know, but I have a scientific design that allows me to test it fast. So within 24 hours, I'll tell you exactly how it did, and I'll tell you how alternatives did. And we'll take the results of that and apply it to the rest of the customer base, or even more particularly, we'll take the results of that and apply it to the exact segment of our customer base to which we're going to have the highest degree of impact.